Hello there, you beautiful people. My name is Willow's Duality, and welcome back to a Step-Stool Laddercast, where today we're going to be looking at two players under 1,000 rating in the 1v1 ladder. Duke it out here on the map generator, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Before we get into introducing our players, with the blue player at the top and the red player at the bottom, please consider liking, subscribing, commenting, joining the channel membership, or joining the Patreon. With that out of the way, let's get into introducing these said players. Up in the north, going blue by the name of Ati. It's Ati. And his name is, of course, Ati, and he's a blue Aeon. What the fuck? Why? I don't know how. I messed up that intro so bad, but we're moving on because we don't do double takes here at Willow's Industries. With the red Cybran in the south taking on Ati, the blue Aeon of the north, we have a man by the name of Skouby. And with that out of the way and our horrible introductions for the day done, I'd like to talk about this map. Not a lot of reclaim, about 5,000, and a decent number of mass extractors for 1v1, honestly. Like, you get a lot of mass extractors, so I'm expecting to see these players get up into Tech 2 pretty quickly. I think the Tech 1 phase is going to be pretty quick, and the Tech 2 phase is going to be a bit longer, if I just had to take a bit of a guess. Overall, they're expanding about the same. It looks like there's going to be a bit more of a focus on air for Skouby, as I don't think there's any air even planned for Ati. And it will, of course, create a disparity in that specific aspect of the game, but is that enough to get Skouby an edge, or will it just be irrelevant as far as the game is concerned? Second land now on the way for Ati. That's going to be the price he pays for going for that early kind of air build. I mean, he's not even going for the air factory, he's just getting pigeons as of the moment. Walking out to the west with his comm and sending engineers out to the east is Skouby, and on the other side seems as though engineers to the west and comm to the east. So these players taking different and radical routes to get where they're going, but they're going to get there all the same. Overall, the ratings are only separated by about 7 points, so this is an extremely balanced ladder game. And of course, we can see the reclaim ticking up over here for Skouby up to 305, but overall, I think Ati is probably doing a little bit better right now. I think that he is probably got a bit more units, and he's going to have a second land factory earlier, which on this map, which I think is going to do wonders. I think that Skouby holding off on his land factories and deciding to build them more forward is going to kind of hurt him in at least the short term, but if he can manage to hold on to him, it'll work out in the long term. Air factory now on the way for Ati. The air factory for Skouby finishing up in a matter of moments, while the air factory for Ati is going to show up a little bit later. The mass extractor expansion, seemingly Skouby ahead on it, has multiple engineers expanding in multiple directions. It seems as though Ati not quite so keen on mass expansion just yet. And of course he's playing Aeon, so I'm going to have to do a little bit more micro, going to have to do a little bit more effort to fight any of these lane battles that show up at T1. Not impossible, but just a little bit more difficult than the other factions. Overall, there is a T1 scout flying out for Skouby. Let's go ahead and check on the intels. Skouby knows nothing. He is Jon Snow. I'd like to see that scout get an order to move in. It does seem as though it has finally gotten one. Ati, of course, the same. Neither of these players scouting each other until just now. A scout flying out of the factory for Ati. These players pretty evenly matched, pretty evenly distributed in their options and choices, not really deviating from each other too very much, other than the, of course, early build where they go for different, they go for the same structures just in different orders, of course. And now we have a third land factory on the way for Ati. We have multiple land factories on the way very soon for Skouby, as Skouby's getting land factories pretty much everywhere. He has so many on the way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 T1 land factories queued up for him. I don't know if these 4 over here are going to be finished, but at the very least, we're going to be seeing about 9 land factories. He's going to have to be very careful about how he eco-balances if he wants to maintain production on all of them. But of course, he can always pause a few and not use a few, but that, of course, begs the question of why build it if you can't use it. Over here to the east, we have a Flare Spirit Aurora Incursion forming for Addy. And I think that this poor little engineer is going to be killed before he finishes that land factory. It's going to be very unfortunate for Skouby. Skouby really just doesn't have any way to notice to see this coming. His air scout did get shot down, so he's going to try and run away with the engineer. These spirit scouts giving him a little bit of leeway, in fact, with that, because he can run away because the spirit scouts DPS is so low. The engineer can run away. It does seem as though he has a couple of tanks over here, and he now sees the flares coming up onto screen. Needs to get these mantis to turn around and fight off the flares if he wants to save his engineers. He has another engineer already out and on the way. Is he going to re-queue up all 4 of those factories? That's a question that we'll answer relatively soon. Some auroras showing up. The mantis taking out 2 of the flares before going down. No micro right now, though, means that he's going to die before getting the last flare with that other mantis. And over here to the east, we see a lot of units coming out for Skouby. Skouby over here on the west with his comm starting to push forward. Doesn't have any upgrade on the comm. There's no upgrade on either comm as far as I can tell. And the comms are going to meet each other around this point. It seems as though there's a bit more scouting going on for Addy, and he has decided to, I guess, match Skouby's comm on this western side. Overall mass generation, Skouby maintaining a 2 to 3 mass generation lead, which doesn't seem like a lot, but that's an extra factory working almost. So gotta keep that in mind. These Aurora doing quite well for themselves over here on the eastern side. Seems as though Skouby isn't able to just send enough units to lock down this forest, but now that it's down to 2 Aurora and a Thistle, I'm pretty sure it's not long for this world. The micro coming out from Addy, pretty good. He's pretty consistently running away when he should be, as the Aeon are very good at doing. Running away really benefits them. But now there is, of course, all of this to start expanding up towards the north for Skouby, and Addy not quite so focused on expanding as his opponent. It does seem. Over here in the middle, nobody going for these 6 mexes in the middle of the map. I mean, I guess they're a bit risky, but they pay themselves off in such a short amount of time. It's always worth it to just queue them up, and nobody really doing that. I guess Skouby just now queued them up, so shame on me for not noticing. 2 hunters that have been out here on the map for a very long time for Skouby. Coming in, gonna try and get some damage done, but I think it's well past the time where harassing hunters are gonna get anything done for Skouby, so I don't know if I really think that's a great idea. Over here on the western side, Skouby fighting off a lot of units with his comm. Needs to be a bit careful, as there's probably enough here in conjunction with Addy's comm to kill him. Of course, that doesn't take into account any kind of reinforcements maybe showing up for him. He's up to T2 land, and Addy is, I would guess, on the way there as well himself, if not already there. No, not quite going for T2 land as early as Skouby is. Skouby down to half health and fighting Addy. This seems like a bad idea. He needs to just run away. He has a lot of idle units down here. It's not going well for him. Also raiding up here in the north, kind of taking away and distracting Addy from chasing down Skouby's comm. But that could have been a scalp if Skouby Skouby just wasn't paying attention to the health on this comm. He was down to 5k HP. His opponent was at 9k with units right next to him. That could have been Skouby dead in this match over. That's the kind of things you have to look out for whenever you're reviewing your own replays. You have to look out for those tiny things that you could have done to win the game or to lose the game. And you need to shore up your weaknesses and improve on your strengths. Over here to the north, seems as though Addy is finally starting to get some expansion on the way, but Skouby just consistently kind of feels like he's further out. Like whenever you look at the map, Skouby about to right here with map control, or I guess like right here, and Addy about right here. So I mean, I guess it's pretty even, but there's this until recently there's been this constant 1 to 2 mass advantage, which I kind of attribute to him having just a couple more T1 mechs. Overall, the middle mechs is now being claimed by Skouby, and he has a lot of units over here to try and help him out and trying to help his comm out with fighting off the units of Addy. Addy now in a bit of a dangerous situation, could be cut off pretty early. Gonna need to get some units out here. He does have a large glob of units back here that he could be sending forward, and it seems as though Skouby is trying to go for the cutoff, trying to go for shutting down the escape of Addy. I think Skouby knows that the comm is right there, or no, he doesn't. He's just trying to get an attack off. just does not know the position he's in and how much strength he has. Right now on the western side, we have a PD now going up for Addy, which is going to do quite well for him, that he got enough walls to be at least a nuisance, and now the units out from Skouby are going to get disintegrated pretty quickly, going to evaporate into thin air, and Skouby going to have to fall back with his comm again as this ebb and flow over on the western side seemingly consistently going back and forth. On the eastern side, it seems as though Skouby is just kind of ignoring it, and it keeps on kind of being an issue. It's kind of like getting punched in the kidney repeatedly and doing nothing about it, because right now he's about to be attacked on this eastern side yet again, and he just doesn't have units to respond to it. He's going to respond to this little like outcropping of units, but what's he going to do whenever these units show up and just start killing all of his T1 mexes? He's going to have to re-queue them, which will be annoying. A T2 engineer over here on the front line, I don't know if that's intentional or not, is T2 power going up in the main base, and he's going to start taking damage over here. Over on the western side, he killed off these 3 mexes that were kind of stolen from him. He got to them first, and then Addy came in, killed them off, and built them himself. He's going to try and build some factories over here on the western side. On the eastern side, needs to come up with a response to Addy's forces. Addy in a very strong position right now, starting to encroach on Skouby's territory. Skouby just losing land mass by the second. Needs some units over here. He has some rhinos out on the field. They could clean this up quite easily as long as he just sends them over here. You've got to keep in mind where all of your units are. Idle units up here for Skouby could be going forward. Addy doing a pretty good job with just keeping units everywhere on the map, but Addy also had the issues with the run-bys earlier, and now I think he's going to start having an issue with tech disadvantage. Addy just not going Tech 2 land is not acceptable at this point. You see your opponent has T2 land. You've been able to see it for quite a while. You've constantly been scouting. You need T2 land of your own. Skouby having a disagreement with the terrain means that these Aurora are going to get even closer to the base. I don't think they're going to be able to kill off anything major, but Skouby losing 5 mexes, he desperately didn't need to lose. He needs to send an engineer out now to regain that territory. And it seems as though the map is going to be split along this kind of area. It seems as though the Cerberus spam coming out from Skouby here in the middle is going to allow him to have a few more mexes than his opponent, but that may not be true. But Skouby just kind of light on the ground forces. Whenever you go look over here, we can see 37 Aurora and 7 Fervors versus Skouby sitting over here with 15 T2 tanks. Sure, he's already in T2, but he just can't cover the same territory that his opponent can. So it's basically the question of wherever Skouby sends units, he's gonna win, but he can't send units everywhere, so he's gonna lose a little bit. I think these point defense in the middle are gonna really shore up his issues right now, though, and he's gonna be transitioning into the T2 phase quite heavily, with already getting... How many T2 support factories is this? He has 6 T2 support factories and 1 T2 HQ. That's 7 T2 factories in total. I have no idea how he expects to afford that. Each of these factories is going to be eating up about 8 mass a second. I mean, maybe if he pauses everything else and gets a couple more mexes on the field, he can afford all of this. But right now, Skouby in a horrible mass stall and needs to find a way to pull himself out of it. And I think a way to pull yourself out of it is honestly get rid of a couple of the T2 support factories. You're not going to be able to afford them in a reasonable amount of time. I guess you could go for mex upgrades, but at that point it's starting to feel like you could just go for T3 land and it would be a better investment. I'm not sure, but rhinos over here on the eastern side starting to push forward. A lot of rhinos being built by Skouby now. It seems he's very focused on one strategy, and that strategy is to use endangered animals to kill off Addy. And over here on the western side, Addy is going to be fighting a couple of rhinos, while Skouby is fighting all of the units out from Addy. And Addy, yet again, in a situation where it's kind of looking like Addy could kill off Skouby if he really felt like it. He got speed and range. Skouby under 4,000 HP or under 5,000 HP, still risky position. Over here on the eastern side, 3 rhinos fighting a war of death and destruction. Each of them picking up multiple kills. And more units starting to pour out of these T2 factories. If this continues on the course it has been for this entire time, it could end up with Skouby just having an overwhelming T2 force. T2 has been achieved by Addy, but he's just now getting up the T2 engineers for that T2 power. He's going to be a little ways off from having T2 unit production, so gonna have to keep an eye on it. I'm going to have to see if he can manage to catch up on the T2 unit spam, or if he's just going to kind of change tactics, go for something else. He's still constantly throwing units at every flank. Over here on the eastern side, Addy throwing in a lot of T1 spam units, trying to get into the base again, but it seems he's given up on that. And Skouby is going for the tactic of upgrading his mechs using engineers, it would seem. He's set them all to upgrade, and they're all paused, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him assisting mechs upgrades. Over here in the center, there's a bit of a fight going on between Aurora and Rhinos. The Aurora are being forced back by the Rhinos. And overall, Skouby just trying to amass a critical mass of Rhinos, get them across the map in enough numbers to kind of just bully his way into a lead. Has he worked on that mass deficit? No, he has made it worse, in fact, and that just means that this unit production is going to be slowed down even more. Needs to come up with some kind of way to pull out of it, because he's just producing units very slowly compared to what he could be if he could afford any of this, really. I would guess he needs to pause a couple of these T2 land factories. He's gotten even more T2 land factories. He's upgraded every factory he's gotten to T2. I don't know if this is the right call, but it just feels a bit weird. With 9 T2 factories, this seems, if you can get the production on it, it's pretty good, but it's just such a mass investment. And it's somewhat all-in my opinion, as Addy is now fighting off Rhinos with the comm. He doesn't really have his own T2 units out on the field en masse yet. He doesn't really have a solution to the large number of Rhinos, and these Rhinos may just be enough to get the kill here. The Rhinos targeted onto the comm of Addy. Addy needs to really think about his decisions right here as he's being forced back. He needs some reinforcements to show up. He needs some kind of solution to the mass Rhino problem that's currently staring him in the face. He has a few eruptors going up in the back line. He's still fighting off these units the best he can, I imagine, but he's just starting to take so much damage on that comm. He's down really low on HP. Starting to have those little flames pop up on the comm means you're in the red. He's going to be in a very big spot of danger right now. Oh, you're not in the red. You're only in the yellow. Wow. The Aeon comm looks really, really damaged whenever it's down to this yellow health. That's surprising. Chrono Dampener now on the way for Addy, and that is one solution to have your opponent getting much more land forces than you and having land supremacy. Chrono Dampener is quite honestly the most cost-effective upgrade in the game. You can get Chrono Dampener relatively early on into a match, and it can be you spend however much mass it costs. Let's just check the mass cost and energy cost for that matter. You spend 1750 mass and 52,500 energy, and you can negate literally like 40,000 mass worth of units easy. If we go over here to Skouby and we just select even just this group of Rhinos, this group of Rhinos is 4,000 mass cost. He can negate that. He can just say, hey, no, that's not an issue anymore. So if Addy can manage to get this upgrade, the only thing I could see that goes wrong here is Addy's getting this upgrade really basically on his front line. He's going to be hard-pressed to get this upgrade without having any kind of issues of units attacking him, unless Skouby just decides it's not worth going up against 2 Oblivions, possibly a few more spammed up by these T2 engineers. Over here on the eastern side, a bunch of Rhinos that were kind of raiding, kind of being shut down now. And Skouby is continuing to increase his mass income, and it seems as though he's maybe getting enough reclaim to finally afford all of this T2 production. Either that or he's stopped T2 production at some point. Oh, seems like he has most of his factories producing T2. This one is not. That one's not. 1, 2, 3. He's going T3 land. Not sure if that is the best call. I think going T3 land would be, if he goes T3 land with all of the factories, then no, it's a horrible call. If he goes T3 land and assists one factory, right now he can afford it, but he needs to eco a little bit more before T3 is a real option. T3 about to finish up though for Addy. Addy slightly ahead on mass as he has been for most of the game. And if he heavily assists this and he turns off some of his T1 production, I think he can afford it. Of course, going straight for Harbingers, not even going to bother with the T3 Engineers. And he's going to have Harbingers out in the field relatively early. Sub 20 minutes for Harbingers is pretty good in 1v1 in my opinion. And over here, Rhinos, there's a lot of Rhinos on the field. How many Rhinos does he have on the field? He has exactly 50 Rhinos, or 14,000 mass in Rhinos. And over here on the northeastern side, I think that these Rhinos are going to be able to break through this. And in the middle, with this Chrono Dampener upgrade finishing, Addy is going to be able to fight this a little bit better. Skouby has gotten gun speed and range for himself as well. And right now, Addy is going to be able to fire on the comm of Skouby for a little bit more using the extra little bit of range. Not really a significant difference between the comms, honestly, whenever it comes to comm fights. It's very hard to stay within that range where the enemy can't shoot you, but you can shoot them. And if anybody notices that's happening, they're going to just do the minuscule micro you have to do to avoid it, which is step back a couple of feet. And just take the fact that you can't really fight that fight as long as you just keep chasing. And Skouby losing a ton of forces up here. He's leaving a lot of reclaim on the field. He's still doing better on reclaim, but he needs to be careful that he's not mass dumping. And overall, over here in the middle, Skouby's come on 62 kills, 63, 64. He's getting up to almost 3 ranks of veterancy. Addy also on 2 ranks of veterancy, but only with 19 kills. So it shows you the difference between killing Rhinos and killing Spirit, Scouts, and Artillery. Needs to make sure he keeps his units moving. Don't want to be losing your Rhinos to Fervors and Fervors and Aurora. Of course, Fervors and Aurora having that giant range going to be pretty useful, but now as they walk into the T2 point defense range, the Aurora's especially good at killing, or the Cerberus especially good at killing Aurora quickly. Better than all of the other factions at killing units extremely quickly. The low health, smaller tier units. Cerberus is a little bit better at dealing with mass spam than the other turrets, but overall the PD pretty much even on that plane. And of course the Cerberus overall worse than the other factions. 3 Harbingers now out onto the field for Addy. Skouby currently sitting on multiple air factories, which is going to be outnumbering the 1 air factory of Addy, and you can see his T1 bomber starting to do some work as Addy shows up with Chrono and starts trying to push back Skouby. Skouby and Addy currently going at it with each other. Go ahead and slow this down a little bit. Get like a nice thumbnail. Oh yeah, one of these frames will be beautiful for a thumbnail. Alright, there we go. And we'll go back to normal speed. As Skouby starts to get chased down by the Harbingers, these Harbingers going to deal a lot of damage onto Skouby. And going to be a bit dangerous for him as he's having to fall back. Addy at pretty much full health. Skouby can't even pull in his units to help him out because Addy, of course, going to continue to stun these units. And these T1 bombers kind of the only thing he can use against Addy. Of course, there's also the Cerberus in the backline. They are kind of a stopping point for Addy. As long as Addy can't kill them, they will be able to stop the comm there. And now T1 bombers, these of Zeus, along with mass Rhino firing shots every couple of seconds. Now, of course, the Rhinos can eventually kill the comm, and this is enough Rhinos that I would be worried about that. But it's just such a difficult ask because all Addy has to do to survive this situation is walk away and get units showing up that can fire at the Rhinos every time they're stunned. Harbinger's going to show up on the south side. It's going to die. Addy going to be forced back with about 8,400 HP. He's about to hit another rank of veterancy, which I'm sure he'll be happy with. And he's going to be able to start chasing down Rhinos as they no longer face towards him. He's going to have that range advantage on the Rhinos, constantly trying to stun up new Rhinos and keep killing them if he feels like it. But of course the Zeus starting to produce issues for him. Up to 3 ranks of vet. The comm of Skouby up to 3 ranks as well after killing those Harbingers, and he decides to just get out of dodge, not fight this fight. He has bricks now coming out onto the field. And overall, Seems as though we've transitioned into the T3 phase. How much of his production is going to go T3? The answer is apparently almost all of it. All of the production in the main base is going T3 right now. He has a huge, huge, huge rhino force still in his hands, in his possession. 61 rhinos, or 17,000 mass worth of rhinos. And overall, a stat we don't normally look at, but in 1v1s is a little bit more relevant. The mass efficiency of Skouby is 1.21 versus 1.84 for Addy, meaning that he's being more efficient. His units are getting a little bit more done. The total mass generated is equal, and the total power generated is in favor of Addy. But the total mass generation is equal, which means that Skouby is using pretty much, he's just being more efficient, which in the long term is going to work for him. This mass T1 unit, this continuation of building T1 units for Addy, it's not efficient. He's trying to use it. He's trying to use it as a bit of a crowbar to leverage his way into a advantageous position. He's trying to force APM out of your opponent, which I think is a good idea, but at a certain point it becomes ineffective because your opponent just has better units and they can afford to field them pretty much everywhere. There's a bunch of Harbingers now showing up on the front line. I think Addy needs to continue to use the Chronocom. He needs to deal with the fact that there's so much mass worth of units on the field. And these units, they win against Harbingers quite hard. Like, if you get these two forces and just throw them at each other, the Rhinos win quite hard. And even with perfect micro out from Addy, it's gonna be really difficult for him to win a fight against this many Rhinos. And now with bricks showing up on the field, it takes multiple Harbingers to kill one brick, so it's gonna be a bit difficult for Addy. He needs to, as I said, use that Chrono upgrade. Chrono is his best friend at the moment, and he needs to make sure he is using it to its fullest. He needs to abuse it like no tomorrow. Overall, Skouby and Addy, they've been sitting on this even map control. Addy has managed to stay ahead on eco for most of the game. He's up to multiple factories making T3 units. He's going to have a lot of Harbingers. He's starting to get the Sprite Strikers out, which means that he needs to make sure that they do not get caught out. He has to keep them at max distance as much as possible. The, of course, benefit of having that. Addy now standing within Cerberus firing range for some unknown reason. And over here on the northeastern side, it seems as though Skouby is being attacked by a bunch of units out from Addy. Most of this is T1. Other than the parashields, this is all Aurora. And the parashields make the Aurora a little bit better. And they're actually called Asylums, not parashields, but still. The Asylums making the Auroras better units because they just have more HP, but overall, it feels like you're going to kill off 3 T1 mexes, and in return, you're going to be giving up, like, over 1,000 mass worth of units. It's just seems like a ton of investment. You do pull some of the units of Skouby out of position, but is it worth it? Sniper bot manages to get a kill on a brick here in the middle. Gonna see those sniper bots slowly do their attritional damage. That's the nice thing about sniper bots, is if your opponent isn't microing, you are just winning, because sniper bots outrange everything but other sniper bots, it seems. It's not that it seems. The only other thing that you can use to counter sniper bots other than running at them is shielding and T2 artillery. T2 static artillery can deal with it. Other than that, you kind of gotta run away. You gotta run away or run at them. Those are your two choices. And these sniper bots starting to take a toll on Skouby. Skouby's comm now brought all the way over here to the north. Seems as though he feels he cannot just sit idly by with his comm. He can't just leave it in the background. It's not an option for him, as it seems he's having struggles with this sniper bot spam now coming out from Addy, which is admirable. Addy doing quite well with the Aeon Micro, doing quite well for himself, and is now starting to pressure down onto Skouby quite heavily. Going to be able to get a bit more done. A brick going to come into range and blap the Sprite Striker out of existence. One brick for a Sprite Striker. I don't think that's a great trade, honestly. I think you need to trade multiple bricks for them, for Sprite Strikers, but overall, gonna have to be happy with what he can get, I guess. Overall, there's a bunch of Cerberus now lined up across the field. He's built quite a few Cerberus, in fact. He is 7 on the field, spread out across the map, trying to just use them to buy time, get momentary map control. But Addy, under a lot of threat by these bricks, he has to be careful. Bricks, once you start getting into T3 and like things like bricks and Percivals, chrono only works when you are running away and they are running directly at you, like it is right now. If you walk in just a little bit too far, the few seconds where they're not stunned will be a fuck ton of DPS. And right now, Addy going to be eating a lot of DPS from these bricks that are seemingly right-clicked onto the comm of Addy, or maybe they're on an attack move. But the question is, does he have enough units to stop this tide? If he uses the chrono properly, I think he does. I think these Harbingers can easily beat the bricks if the bricks are stunned for half the time they're fighting. But he needs to be careful. Over here on the eastern side, some Harbingers and various eclectic mix of T1 and T2 units for Addy. Trying to push onto the Cerberus, but the Cerberus are they're gonna die quickly, but these units are also gonna be a bit forfeit. T1 bomber is still coming out from Skouby. Skouby still has the air advantage. He can still continue to just throw T1 bombers at his issues. Of course, AA is gonna deal with them, but still seemingly a decent option for him. And he has a lot of bricks now coming out onto the field. Overall, we have currently 26,000 mass worth of Harbingers on the field versus 29,000 mass worth of bricks. And bricks, mass for mass, are just better than the Harbinger. So, and also, all of these Rhinos still on the field. I don't know if he's still producing Rhinos. I don't think he is, but Rhinos are mass efficiency-wise way better than Harbingers and bricks. The T2 tanks are more mass efficient than the T1, or more mass efficient than the T3, and the T1 are more mass efficient than the T3. But T2 kind of just still can hold its own pretty well against it if it's a mass for mass fight and they're not being outranged. Now, of course, they will be outranged in a lot of situations, and right now you can see Rhinos dying to the superior range of the Harbingers, but if these two armies get into a giant clash with each other, it's going to go pretty well for Skouby. Skouby could send the comm down and just easily blap away these two Harbingers, and these Harbingers are dead. I'd like to see Skouby trying to get aggressive, trying to go for an attack. I think he's in the driver's seat of this match. It's his match to lose at the moment. He's managed to force it to the T3 phase. He's managed to force it to the point where Addy is having to do so much more to get the same amount of work done. It's just you have to micro the sniper bots, you have to micro the Harbingers properly. You can't just throw the Harbingers in and try and use the sniper bots in the back. You have to use these Harbingers as either a raiding force or as a distraction force, and just constantly try and be mobile. You cannot sit still as Aeon with Harbingers. You can't just throw your units at the enemy like Skouby is going to have the luxury of right here. And he's just seemingly going to throw his units over here to the north. A lot of PD going up, but I mean, how much PD do you need to stop? Like, just right here. Just the units on screen. This is 30,000 mass worth of units. He's not going to have enough mass worth of PD to stop this. Maybe the units in conjunction with the PD and all of the structures over here is going to be able to deal with it, but you're going to kill a few bricks, but you're also going to have to focus fire on Rhinos and such. Over here on the western side, there's a lot of Harbingers showing up, so it seems as though we might be going into a base trade situation, but as far as I can tell, the reinforcements for Skouby are just going to do better. He has a bunch of bricks over here. They're going to trade pretty horribly with this number of Harbingers, but they will trade. On the other side, it seems as though the defenses are just folding immediately. The Harbingers over here on the western side going to run into a bunch of bricks. The bricks outrange the Harbingers, so the bricks can just start falling back, and we're going to have Harbingers dying before the bricks even have a chance. I mean, yeah, like these Harbingers can't even see the bricks, and they're just dying outright on the front line. And now there's enough bricks here to just win this fight outright, and there's enough bricks over here to win this, and he's just throwing a brick through the window. That's how you win as a Cybern. You're throwing a lot of bricks at your opponent. I don't know how Addy can come back from this. He just doesn't have enough. He needed more sniper bots, and he needed to be microing them more actively to keep the brick count low. Because once that brick count gets to a certain number, it's just kind of impossible to deal with. And now these bricks over here on the eastern side, outranging the Harbingers, he hasn't even lost a brick in this fight yet. You can see the trail of tears that these Harbingers have gone through against the bricks, and it's just the last Harbinger left is gonna have one hell of a story. It's like we couldn't even compete. He just destroyed in the droves. He killed my brethren, and my sister, and my cousins. He killed everybody. He killed my grandpa. That's the last Harbinger. That's the, yep, he just told the story, and now the main base is falling apart for Addy, and Skouby just won it because bricks are strong, and Harbinger's not as strong. Aeon can be very strong, and if he could have managed to get the Chrono to lock down enough bricks and kill him off, that would have been a possibility, but overall, Skouby comes out with the victory. Hard-fought battle from both sides, but Skouby getting the edge by simply having bricks, and also the mass rhino spam really helped him out. The amount of rhinos he had on the field were pretty significant. Thank you all for watching. Thank you to my patrons and channel members. You all are beautiful. See you in the next one. Goodbye.